These might be the most underrated support units ever. How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan Battle video. In today's video, we're doing something a little bit different here. We are taking a look at some of the recent support units released within, let's say, the last year to 8 months, and ordering them in what we feel are the top 10 most underrated units. So unlike our typical tier list, right, we're not really going to be judging them based on their power. We're not really going to be judging them based on their versatility or based on their consistency like we typically do for our tier list, but rather here we're going to be judging them based on what they're doing for their teams, i.e. how they are supporting their teams, sort of the style of unit that they are designed to be, and how overlooked we believe they are by the community as a whole. So without further ado, let's get started with a few honorable mentions. You see, this list will consist mostly of either banner units, free-to-play units, or TUR, EZAs, and super EZAs. I'm going to try to avoid including mainline units, Dokkan Fest units with support, because we have a lot of Dokkan Fest releases with support, and they're not really going to make this list because I don't feel that most of them are underrated, at least not even for their support. Same goes with premium LRs as well. So we will focus strictly on the banner unit TURs and any free-to-play units released there. So with that said, let's go ahead and let's talk about those honorable mentions. So I know I just said no LRs, but that's why these guys are honorable mentions. The first two LRs we have in our honorable mention are the LR5 guys and the LR Super EZA Gohan, Goten, and Trunks. Now, again, the reason they're going into our honorable mention section is because they are LRs, and I didn't want to bring too many LRs into this equation as it was going to throw things off a little bit here. But the reason I'm putting these guys in honorable mention is because I do feel like these guys get overlooked a lot for the support that they're doing within their teams. Gohan, Goten, and not Gohan, he's not here. These guys are important to the Gohan, Goten, and Trunks LR, the Ent hybrids, if you will. I see a lot of people talk about the viability of that card and whether or not they're good or bad, but what I don't ever see people talk about is how useful that card is, how necessary this card is for that card. You want to talk about underperforming Ent hybrids? Run them without these guys, right? These guys, while not your traditional support unit, where they really help out that that LR is through their critical hit support. We don't see critical hit support very often. This is another reason why, even if they were a TUR, they would probably be on the honorable mention list, because they're not a traditional support unit. But what they do provide, right, on a youth hybrids team is critical hit support. And I can't tell you how important that is for a character like the Ent hybrids who don't really have a whole lot of built-in crit. Like, in order to get their crits, they have to build it up through the Gohan stage. And in most fights, you're not building that up for more than a turn. So you're not getting anything more than about an extra 40% or so critical hit unless you've built it into them through their passive, or through their hidden potential rather. So these guys adding an extra 20% to that really helps. You combine that with the fact that on their 18 key they are and 12 key they are increasing their own defense, that makes them pretty survivable for the turn, right? It's not a crazy raise, right? It's only a 30% raise, but it is enough for them to survive most normals against the game, while also having a decent chance to evade on a full youth or hybrid. So they're a great unit to support that team. If you really want to see, an underperforming in hybrids, as I said, run it without these guys. They're such an underrated unit for the team. Our second honorable mention goes to the LR5 guys. Like I said, if I was going to include LRs on this, they were going to be there. They are strictly these guys. They are strictly EZA and Super EZAs. These guys often get overlooked because they released at a time when at the beginning of the anniversary, and you know, we were still kind of struggling with Bio Broly and Cell Max. But even then, they did really well in those fights, fully built up. They could tank Bio Broly turn 1, which was not ideal for them, right? Because you needed to, you know, that was when their damage reduction the highest, but they also need to kind of super to build up a little bit, but could easily survive slot 2 if they tanked a bunch, if they ended up tanking a bunch of hits turn 1, even after getting stunned. So they could be really helpful. You add to the fact that they are raising superclass allies attack and defense for 1 turn. It's really helpful in slot. Obviously, it's best in slot 1, but it is very helpful in slot 2. And outside of Bio Broly, you know, there's quite a number of fights you can slot 1 easily to proc that. And even if you can't slot 1 of them, they do have a scouter effect after 7 attacks and a just standard passive support now, which makes them, you know, really, really helpful. So if you can't slot 1 of them, you're still getting support out of them. And I think for a character that is also orb changing and allowing Daima Super Saiyan 4 Goku to, you know, maximize his potential with that as to orb changing, I think they are quite an underrated unit. So just wanted to throw those 2 LRs in there and drop in our last honorable mention. This one is a TUR, and the reason he's going in the honorable mention is because he is not a traditional support unit, but he is a banner unit that has come out within the last year and was really overlooked when he was released, just because there were just so many conditions to the guy that people didn't want to talk about here. So let's actually pull him up real quick, but that is the Fizz Spovich. When we take a look at this guy, it is a really interesting release because it released along the Int Hybrid trio and didn't really have a team focus, you know, being on Majin Buu Saga, you know, Corroded Body and Mind lead. Like he really just didn't have a place to perform. You add into the fact that, you know, he wants to be fighting the tournament participants. He wants to be fighting Earthlings. He wants to be fighting Peppy Gals. It's just a really strange place for him to be. But then something changed, right? We got the release of Tech Deborah and Baby. We also got the Red Zone Kai for the Universal Survival Saga. This gave him a home, especially on the Tech Deborah's team, although he can do pretty well on Baby's team too, right? That gave him a home. And I'm going to tell you right now, I ran this guy against that, you know, against the Goku and Frieza on Tech Deborah's team, and he can pretty much tank all the way through. So he's really, really useful in that regard. You know, just being kind of an extra option, right, for the Corroded Body and Mind setup, right? Talk about a team that went from 0 to hero in the last few months, right? You know, with the release of Baby, with the release of Tech Deborah, and a lot of units to support those teams, he ended up just being another solid option for that team. Granted, it is strictly in the Red Zone Kai, but still a great option for the team. And adding a scouter effect to the team was very helpful too, you know, once you get your 8 attacks in. So I wanted to throw him in there because, again, he's not a traditional support unit as he offers no support, but he does offer a scouter effect and he does offer a little bit of extra tanking on the Corroded Body and Mind team. And the reason he goes in honorable mention is because it was strictly because of the introduction of the Red Zone Kai. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and let's hop into our top 10. So coming in at number 10 for our most underrated support units is the AGL Champa. This guy released with the worldwide last year with the STR Blue Goku and Vegeta, right, on their banner. Once again, another situation, right? We have a character who releases on a banner with a unit with no team. You could say he was designed to be more run on Rose's Super Bosses team, but he's not on Super Bosses. So you didn't really have a place to run him. AGL Gogeta's successors team was probably the only other option you had to run him. Universe 6 team, on his team he wasn't bad. Kalen Cauliflo's team, not bad. But where this guy really began to shine is on the Fizz UI Goku's Realm of Gods team. He is a great third slot option for that team, buffing Realm of Gods by 66% attack and defense, while also, being able to hold his own, provided you get his key spheres, right? He gets 111% defense for every key sphere, and he only needs 6 to really sort of get to his maximum potential. And he's just a great third slot option for that team, because no one else on that Realm of Gods team really needs the orbs except for the STR Blues or UI Goku. And even then, UI Goku can kind of be mitigated with orbs by just making sure you put him in positions where he can get his dodges in and get built up. So it's really not that big of a deal. You add in the other key and passive supports that's coming through that Realm of Gods team, he makes for a great addition to the team. So he comes in at number 10 because I do feel like he is often overlooked for that team, but he's definitely not the most overlooked out of all of the characters that you're going to see show up on this list. So coming in at number 9, this was a unit that a lot of people were, myself included, forced to run for the androids team, and that is the STR World Tournament 17, right? This guy was a World Tournament unit. This Hellfighter 17 is basically the only option you had if you pulled for 16 and you've gotten 16 recently and you don't have the STR Dragon Ball Super 17, VP 17, if you will. He's your next best option. He's doing a lot of the same things, not too crazy of a way in which the Super 17 is doing it, but enough that it is, he still provides decent support and allows you to activate Android 16's unit Super, since he is a Hellfighter 17. So that it's pretty awesome. He's very, very useful on that team, providing support for both androids and artificial life forms, meaning if you have a character on both categories, they get both of his supports. Add on to the fact that he's a pretty decent dodge unit, right? He's got a 50% chance to dodge naturally, and you get additional 17% when with your 12 key, and an additional 17% as long as he's on a androids or artificial life forms rotation. So he's got a decent dodge stance. You add that with some hidden potential dodge for a free unit. This guy is really great. I think he's often overlooked. I don't see many people, even during 16's big run, I didn't see a lot of people talking about him and how useful he is for that team. And he's especially useful if you don't have the Super 17. So if you've seen a lot of my androids runs, I didn't have Super 17 until recently. So having him now made a huge difference. Right now, running them both together even makes the team even more powerful. So he gets number 9 for being a great filler option in place of a main banner unit, for a team. Coming in at number 8 is a couple units that that came out recently, but I don't feel like are getting enough attention for what they're doing for their team. team. And while it is, while they are a free to play set of units, I do think that they are still very useful, and that is Pansy and STR Glorio. And I'm putting them both together because they are in their ideal situation, you're running them both together as opposed to separately. But they come in at number 8 as an overlooked support unit on the Demonic Power and the Daima teams, right? Anybody who's had to run that Daima mission without both new LRs understand the importance of these two characters, by the way. But they are just so insanely helpful here on those teams, right? You talk about Glorio, right? Glorio is Glorio on steroids. Now, he's not giving that 3-turn support, but he's doing a lot of the same things. He's dodging, right? And he's adding, additional support within the turn for the Dragon Ball Seekers. And it honestly comes out more than what you would get from, Fizz Glorio combined with the other allies that are going to be supporting within that turn. But you have things, you have 20% attack for super if you're on super class, another 25% attack if those super class are Dragon Ball Seekers, another 25% attack if those Dragon Ball Seekers are Demonic Power, right? So you're talking 75% attack support. That is insane. Now, again, it's within the turn, but that's still a pretty insane amount of support within the turn. You add on to the fact that he's got, 10% if you have Pansy or a Daima character on the team. You got 10% dodge, you got another 15% dodge, so 25% dodge, another 15%, so 40% dodge, and another 10%, 50% dodge on top of whatever you decide to give him for hidden potential, because of course free to play you're probably going to go full dodge anyways. It's a great support unit, and the best part about him is he's only gonna get better because he hasn't easy aid yet. Pansy kind of falls into the same category here, right? Pansy doing almost nearly exactly what Glorio is doing, but added defense instead. So 75% defensive support from Pansy while also evading enemies' attacks and also supporting the team. Like, they're just doing really good things. You add on to the fact that she can also stun or seal the enemy if the fight allows for that, which some harder fights do in the early phases. Can be very helpful. So when you combine these two, you add for a great supporting rotation. And while their links aren't the craziest, on a team like Tech Daima Goku's team or STR Daima Goku's team, right, the added support bonus sends characters like Daima Vegeta and STR Daima Goku, right, it sends their attack through the roof, which is really what you want, especially when you combine with the EX Supers coming out of Daima Goku. So for all of that, they do earn a slot at number 8 because I feel like they don't get talked about enough when we talk about the premium Daima Goku team. They're insane support units, and you really don't even need both of them together, but both of them together do make for a fun rotation. So they get to come in at number 8 for that. The next overlooked unit for coming in at number 7 is an LR. However, she is a free-to-play LR, and that is the STR Chi-Chi. She does not get talked about at all. This unit is a great Goku's family support unit that I feel like is nearly entirely ignored, strictly on the grounds that she is a free-to-play world tournament character. I feel like these characters often get overlooked. Like, people will talk about them like the day they release, and then after that completely forget about them. But for anybody who's followed my guides for a lot of these seriously serious battle missions that have come out, and even some of my quick strategies for, you know, monotype missions, we've had a lot of STR monotype missions lately, at least before we started getting all the Fizz ones, and she's always made the team, right? And that is because, you know, on a Goku's family setup, she can actually do really well. She's a great support unit on STR Daima Goku's team. As long as you have a Goku on the team, you know, she's going to get her full passive, and she's going to be doing, you know, crazy things. It gives her automatic key 6 and attack and defense 159%. But for 2 turns, your Goku's family characters have 70% attack and defense. And you'll notice, or rather just attack. And so you'll notice a lot of the teams I run them on are teams where, you know, we only need her for those 2 turns. You float her and then the turn's over. And she can do pretty well. Like, she's been on a few Cell Max runs of ours with Goku's family. She's been on a couple Bio Broly runs of ours with Goku's family. In fact, I think we did a Bio Broly run with a double Chi-Chi. Like, that's how powerful her 70% attack is for the team. So it is really good. And then you know, that's not the only support she's giving. She's still giving defense support through her passive, as long as you have a Goku's family and Goku on the team. So 50% defensive support on top of that, right? Like, you can't ask for a better support unit. She's pretty tanky, right? As long as you've fulfilled her conditions, she can tank most normals. And if not, you know, she's still got a high chance of where's her she's still got a high chance of evading enemy's attack, depending on how many attacks you do within the turn, right? So if you have a little bit of dodge in her, a little bit of additionals built into her, right, she's going to be getting, you know, 60% dodge at a minimum post super. So great support unit. I feel like often overlooked and hasn't really been talked about since she released. Maybe once people get her rainbowed from World Tournament, we might see her move up in the discussions. But I definitely think she's a great unit that I don't see a lot of people talking about. And you're starting to notice a trend here, right? Our rankings here are kind of more centered around how often people consider these units. With that said, our next unit is another unit that I feel like is nearly completely ignored. You know, as we get into here, right, you're just going to see more and more units that are not talked about as often. And so coming in at number 6 is Fizz Daima Piccolo, right? Again, the rankings aren't necessarily based on their performance, but how often I see people, you know, talking and judging them. And Fizz Piccolo fits that to the bill, right? When we talk about the Daima team, right, I feel like I haven't seen too many teams that run Daima Piccolo nowadays. But Daima Piccolo is an excellent support unit for the Daima team. His damage isn't always there, and I think that's probably why he gets overlooked. He's very low on the damage, but giving 2-turn support to giving the 70% support to Superclass Demonic Power and Dragon Ball Seeker allies is just huge. There's so many different characters that benefit from that, especially if you're running the Daima team, right? Again, the purpose of Daima team is to get STR Goku going, and I feel like a lot of people forget to just, you know, that you really want to see Daima Goku really work, you need to toss in these support units. A lot of people I see talking about Daima Goku's like, oh, I can't get his key. Oh, it's so difficult. Well, I mean, a lot of people aren't running, you know, characters like this guy here, who aren't just providing attack and defense support, but also providing key support. And these kind of things really help a character like them. Yeah, to the fact that he's got a decent chance to dodge, right? You know, as if he's in the depending on which slot he's in, preferably the 3rd slot. That's where he's going to function the best, even if it's for a turn. But he's got a decent chance to dodge, and you know, he can tank most normals thanks to his guard. You got a pretty decent support unit here that helps out his major team a lot. So I feel like he's often ignored on the Diamond team, and that's why I've moved him up to number 6. Okay, moving into number 5. At number 5 is technically a set of 3 units, but I'm going to put just the one here just for the sake of making this quicker. But that is the Baby Trio. These guys come in at number 5 because they are excellent support units for the baby team, for the corroded body and mind team, for the int hybrid LR possessed trio, or possessed duo, that rather. They are incredible free-to-play units that often don't get talked about, strictly because they're free-to-play units. They got a little bit of talk when they first awakened, and then not since, but they haven't got worse. You want to run Baby's team right now. You want to run Corroded Body and Mind under Tech Deborah. These guys are still going to put in work for you. They rely heavily on dodge and being on rotation with each other, right? So you have the Trunks here, you have the Goten and the Gohan. They rely heavily being on rotation with either each other or with Baby. And when Baby first released, it was kind of hard to really manage them because they want to be on rotation with each other, but also all 3 of them want to be floating, and they can't obviously all be floating at the same time. And when Baby first released, it was really hard to manage that. Now, not as much, right? Because now you can run Baby's team and have a Baby on each rotation safely, with a Deborah or a Goma on the other rotations. And then, your hybrid trio and these guys floating, or however you want to do it, or hybrid duo rather. And now they're a little bit safer. You don't have to force one of them into slot 2 or slot 3 or slot 1 now that the team is sort of filled out. So they get to get all of their support passives while also buffing the team in the 3rd slot, while not having to worry too much about, being forced into a slot they don't need to be in, right? They can easily slot 3 now pretty safely. And, they're doing a lot of things like combined together, right? You kind of see the same thing happening with the crossover team, right? Crossover team, the defense kind of seems like it's lacking until you realize how many support units are within that team are all raising defense on super for the team. The same applies here, right? You want to see Baby start to skyrocket in his attack and Deborah start to skyrocket in his attack. Watch these guys go off for a couple of supers after a couple of turns, right? You have this guy raising attack for 3 turns per super, right? And, combined with his support passive, right? He's got 30% defense, 30% attack. He's got an additional 20% for Corroded Body and Mind, and an additional 30% for the Baby Possessed characters, right? That's a pretty hefty chunk, and it really helps Baby out, right? Often people will describe Baby's attack and defense as lackluster, but it's because he really wants these guys around, giving him that extra attack, giving him that extra defense. It really does help him out. It's really nice when you can get all 3 of these guys going. So they get a slot at number 5 because they are definitely one of the fewer talked about units, but I do personally see a lot of people who are running Baby and Deborah have some of these guys on their team. All right, so coming in at number 4, right, is another unit I feel like is completely and utterly overlooked by everyone, and that is the int Chilai here. I think she got nearly, let's pull her up here, right? I think she got pretty much completely ignored because as a unit here, most people just were like, oh, she easy aid. Oh, she's not really that much different than what she was doing before. But that didn't make her bad. that just meant they understood the assignment, right? She is exactly what she needed to be for who she needed to be, and still doing what she's doing. She gives you a scouter effect, which again it's a little less important in fights like Bio Broly, but in a lot of other fights, it's very, very helpful, right? Cell Max, very helpful knowing where those two supers are. So having a scout artifact, having some, it's not a lot, but I talked about this earlier with the ints, or with the AGL Goten and Trunks. Critical hit support is very, very helpful. And she does give that on top of her 39% attack defense, which isn't anything too crazy, but it is really, really, really helpful. Plus, you can get an additional 39% after she evades 6 attacks, and she's got a pretty decent dodge chance, right? You've got you have your great chance of evading enemies' attacks, so 70% dodge. You combine that with a dodge build, and specifically 10% extra dodge if it's a super. You've got a pretty decent floating support unit right here. Who, granted, teams are not the craziest, right? Space Traveling Warriors, Bond of Friendship, Peppy Gals. But the reality is she's going to die to most normals anyways. And so one of the really cool things I like about her is she's one of those few support characters that you can actually run off lead and she will still function exactly how she needs to function, because regardless of whether she's on or off lead, she can still pretty work pretty well for those teams. I feel like less and less people are willing to experiment with off lead, but if you're somebody who is willing to try that, you can see how useful a character like this is, who provides a scouter to the team, and that 40% support can be. And so the reason she gets up here at number 4 is because I feel like she's been heavily ignored as a whole by the community. Coming in at number 3 is a unit that is largely been ignored. And I think it's strictly due to when he released. This dude released on the Legic released with the LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta from the 11th anniversary. Once again, a character who seemingly had no team at the time. You had Omega's team, which he can function on pretty well, actually. But you weren't really having too many places to run Omega's team at that moment. So he kind of got left to the wayside. And it's not his fault. It's not Omega's team's fault. It's just kind of where the meta was at that moment. But then, immediately following the anniversary, this guy got his best wishes. You see, you would think a GT boss would be best on GT bosses, but no, he is not. This GT boss, this Legic, actually works really well on the Tech Deborah's team, providing support for the mission execution category. 60% support for the mission execution makes him pretty powerful in of itself, right? Just added that, that's already great. That is a huge thing for most characters, but they didn't stop there. What they did to him was they gave him support buff on his super attack effects by raising allies attack defense or attack for 2 turns through that. But they didn't stop there. Then they gave him the ability to do multiple super attacks as the second or third attacker in the turn. You combine that with decent enough damage reduction to be able to survive most normals. As a 3rd slot floater, he becomes an insanely powerful character for supporting the team. He even has, right, like that increased dodge chance if you want to move him real quick into the 1st slot to increase some to increase the effectiveness of your 2-turn support by buffing your 2nd and 3rd slot allies for that turn if you had to. So that's really nice. So this guy allows someone like Tech Deborah, right? If you have this guy go off for like 3 supers, 60% attack support on a turn right before you use Tech Deborah's active right? You're talking about increasing the effectiveness of Tectobora's active tenfold. Remember, he does Tectobora gets built up with the hits he receives on top of dealing, you know, quite a bit of damage on his active turn through that target skill. So you really want to increase the effectiveness. Let Yakon do his active skill and get a couple of attacks in, and this guy get a couple of attacks in right before you do it, and you'll see how powerful it can be. So really, really great card, often overlooked, and once again, another character I feel like isn't talked about enough. And so now, when it came down to number 2, this is where things got tricky, because there's quite a few units here I felt could fill out the number 2 slot, and it was really, really tough to decide who one of the more overlooked support characters is, right? And it pretty much came down to 3 units. And after running all 3 of them and testing them out, I think I'm going to have to err on the side of the free unit in this case out of my 3 choices. And that is the Int Shen, or not Int, Tech Shen here. I know a lot of people real quick were talking about him when we saw that he was getting easy A from the recent World Tournament, and then discussions on him nearly dropped off. But I think he gets a place at number 2, not just because he's incredibly good, but also because I feel like, again, he isn't talked about enough for what he's doing on Realm of Gods, right? Realm of Gods currently is designed to be a dodge team, and that's what this guy always was. But they dialed it up to 11 with him by also giving him the ability to support Demonic Power, Realm of Gods, and World Tournament characters. I do kind of wish that was tournament participants, not World Tournament, but even then, right, the additional support is very helpful. Added to the fact that he has a few guaranteed dodges within his passive, right? When you have a full Realm of Gods, Demonic Power, or World Tournament, you have your initial attack, right? A guaranteed evasion, which can be very helpful in a lot of these fights where, you know, you only have 1 or 2 attacks within slot 1. Bio Broly is a great example of this. In most cases, he's only doing 1 attack slot 1. Sometimes he'll do 2, sometimes he'll do 3, but one of those is his heal. So you have a pretty good shot of him not getting touched at all during those setups. And so he is just such an insane unit on the Realm of Gods team and is pretty overlooked. So I feel like that puts him in the number 2 category. And coming back to our honorable mentions, I did have 2 other characters on here, and that is the Int, both Int Vegetas, ironically, and that is the Int Movie Heroes Vegeta and the Int Daima Vegeta, a free-to-play character. Now, the reason these guys make it on here, and not really above any of the others, is because they aren't and while they are overlooked, I do think that they don't get, that they don't get enough credit for what they're doing, right? The Int Vegeta is primarily movie heroes who he's supporting, and that's kind of why he gets an honorable mention, because he's not really supporting anybody else, and that was kind of why I didn't want to move him anywhere other than that. But as a support unit, he is really good for supporting movie heroes, so he gets the honorable mention for being a good support unit, even though, you don't really have a decent movie heroes team to run him on. But if we did, he would easily slot into that team when that happens. And I could very well see us getting a new movie hero set up very soon. Daima Vegeta, same thing. All right. Daima Vegeta, if you're lacking options for the Daima team, he is a solid support option for that team. Providing attack defense support, decent dodge. And again, like the Pansy and the Glorio, if you did not have any of the major Daima units, right, he was instrumental in winning those Daima mission fights for you. So he has an honorable mention for that. And that brings us to our number 1 most underrated support unit, and you can probably already see him at the bottom here, but it is the Fizz Vegito Blue. This guy gets I don't know whether to say this guy is underrated or just hated. It's a really strange place to be, right? Because this dude is the only aside from our honorable mentions, he's the only premium card here, and he is a Dokkan Fest. To be fair, the other 2 are Carnival and Yellow Coin, but he is a Dokkan Fest, and I was hesitant to put him on the list as first as a Dokkan Fest, but because they shifted his role as primary attacker through his counters to a floating support unit, I felt like it was okay to justify putting him on this list. You see, the thing a lot of people forget about is not only does he have quite a few different teams he can slot into, major teams at that, right? Realm of Gods, Future Saga / Few Fighters under the Blues, Battle of Fate under STR Goku, Power Beyond Super Saiyan under the LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, right? Superheroes under the New Year's units, right? There's so many different teams he can run under, and all he has to do is be in the 3rd slot. One of the safest slots in the game outside of a fight like Cell Max or fights like Majin Vegeta, where you know the super is going to be in the 3rd slot. For the most part, he's going to be safe. And while he's doing that, as long as you're running full super class or you have a Future Saga ally on the turn, which on most of his teams you will, you can support allies for 40% attack defense for 2 turns, which is insanely huge, right? Adding support for 2 turns, right? 2-turn support is always going to be a big bonus in my book. So 2-turn support, added the fact that he's pretty much not dying to normals, as well as dealing chip damage as a result of those normals that he's going to receive in the 3rd slot, as well as providing rainbow orb changing. He is such an underrated support unit, and I feel like he gets underrated because people don't expect him to be a support unit. People expect him to be a all-out attacker, right? They expect him to be on the level he was at EZA, but he's just not that. He is a support unit now, and I feel like I can justify him at number 1 because so many people overlooked that fact. In fact, out of all of these characters right here, most of these characters get overlooked because they are not, they're not premium characters people actually care about. But this is a Vegito Blue, and people do care about him, and to the point where like his Super EZA was pretty hated. And so that's why I feel like I can justify him being a number 1, because he's so overlooked in that regard. Okay. And we have one last honorable mention. The reason I'm going to put him at honorable mention here is just because they are relatively new, and I think this is just simply a result of time, and it is in the Toa and Mira. I'm throwing them out here at you guys just because I want to remind people, right? This is why characters often get overlooked, right? Nobody is talking about the fact that they are doing this right here. They're 2-turn support through their super attack effect. This is very similar to what Daima Vegeta is doing through his super attack effect, and strictly for extreme allies, by the way. But with them launching, 5-6 supers in a turn, this adds up quite a bit to for a 2-turn support for characters. So I just wanted to throw them in there as a last minute honorable mention. And I think they're I don't think they're properly underrated. I think people just haven't had time with them, and that's why they're not getting fully there. So there it is, guys. There is our top 10 most underrated support units. Probably one of our longer videos, but I feel like I really needed to dive into each of these. And honestly, I enjoyed doing it. So If you guys like the video, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know, how would you rank the most underrated support units? Or, you know, who do you think are the best support units, right? This isn't a particular order of their viability from best to worst, but rather how I feel they are either overlooked or underrated. But let us know in the comments down below how you would rank these guys. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching and aloha.